and I see it a lot because, they also kind of like, use the GNU, marketing with it. But as Damien pointed out, like honestly, to get a proper EEG rig out of it, like you end up spending about 100 euros. And anyway, it was great talking to Colin. So that was a bright spot. I was just saying, John, that I've attended all the European Buzzin' reviews, or at least I've had it on the background. But certainly, a lot of interesting speakers that they'd have afterwards too. And I tried to get, as I said on the Hardware Hub, not everybody's on the Hardware Hub channel, but Plato Science, which also, talked at the San Francisco Buzzin' Review. They make a discount code for us, or they're offering a discount code for us. I'd love to get it so that we can add them to the Hardware Hub, or at least advertise that discount. But yeah. Oh, the Brainduino, right. Yeah. I mean,
Morgan, how have the other Buzzin' Review GatherTown events been? Like, has there been a lot of variability in the general vibe, or?
Yeah. So honestly, I didn't. Not everybody was using GatherTown, and I mean, I was saying that like London and well, the Neurable event today both used this Run the World.
Right. Platform. Yeah, I've seen that.
And it was kind of nice, like speed dating attendees with that platform, which is kind of how I got paired with Colin. I think Paris was going to have GatherTown, but then it by the time they reached their social, they had a lot of speakers. I mean, it was great, but they went like 3 hours before they were going to do the GatherTown.
Mm-hmm.
The Neurable event was starting, so I kind of switched over to the wearable devices. And Ryan, did you catch that?
No, I did not have time. I'm dealing with a lot of snow up here.
Right. and I mean, we're going to talk about this later, but I wasn't even sure if you were going to be also, in multiple events with the game jam or.
Yeah. And I actually want to mention, we had a similar thing to GatherTown. I'm trying to look it up right now, but in VR. It's like you can rent it similar to a GatherTown, I think. And there's a 2D desktop version and a VR version, and it was quite a lot of fun. We had about, I'd say, 45 people in it, and it was pretty smooth.
So yeah, I mean, Paris. So Paris technically runs from. I mean, their hack night is an hour and a half, technically, and then they break out into a French Mozilla Hubs, I think is what it's called, but it's in VR.
Oh yeah, Mozilla Hubs is great. Project North Star uses Mozilla Hubs. Okay. And I know they also there's another WebVR one that I know someone is developing. Like, there are a lot of options now for hosting online, like, events or, like, group discussions and stuff. Yeah.
Well, for sure. And I still would love to do something with Roberto in terms of like a Jitsi mashup that allows us to, it kind of just gives us that kind of GatherTown way of kind of choosing a better interface to kind of like choose your video room. I don't know what else to call it. That doesn't cost $2 to $7 per user per month or something like that. But yeah, so I haven't seen anybody else actually try and use GatherTown, John. But they all had some, but everybody had a lot of good speakers after, kind of. So I think they ended up doing something similar to us in the sense that like it was, 4 speakers after the slide presentation. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Good to have you here, Manuel. Okay. So.
Hello, Morgan. Hello, guys. Thank you.
Hey there. So it is 6:30, and now would be the time to check in with John on EEG notebooks.
So, all right, no major updates, but one thing that I'll share my frustrations with is as we mentioned last time, I've been looking into running stuff on a Raspberry Pi.
Oh, yeah.
And basically where I'm at with this is I think I'm going to get a new Raspberry Pi because the one I have is, I don't know exactly which version it is, but I think I got it around 2012.
Oh my God, man. Okay. Yeah, I got an 8 gig. I got an 8 gig Raspberry Pi 4. And, I'm like, if it's not going to serve as a desktop system, like, I'm not going to run it.
Right. I was just having issues with installing that. I was like, this thing's kind of, I'm gonna spend more time just trying to update the firmware or whatever, trying to figure out, find the old version of the, connect with through Wi-Fi because there's only 2 ports type thing, using a dongle. So where I'm at on this is, cool. I'm still gonna do this, but I'm gonna get a new bloody Raspberry Pi and take it from there. And I'm interested to know. I actually have the tabs open right now. Like, what are the new features of the latest Raspberry Pi models versus the earlier ones? Like, what's different?
Sure. I mean, the big, so I'm running Fedora 33. I mean, I'm basically running the latest Fedora on a Raspberry Pi, and the kind of the difference with Fedora versus kind of like Raspbian and things is that they're not trying to optimize for Raspberry Pi, as well as like they are completely against using any kind of proprietary stuff. So this is like all open source, all freeware versions of compatible drivers and things like that.
Oh, is Raspbian not open source?
So I think like Ubuntu, I think they'll take some binary blobs to use for particular things.
Okay.
I'm definitely not up on what kind of like the latest, OS optimizations are, or who's using what, but what so I got the new 8 gig version, right, so that I could just install basically the same OS that I use on everything else.
I
don't
right? I don't want to have to do a bunch of different types of installation.
Yeah. And then so the thing because I was using the like almost desktop version, or of it's ARM plus 8 gigs of RAM, right? So I can run a full workstation version. The latest lab streaming layer comes with a build script. So you don't even need, like, I checked out Froelic's instructions, and he's got some typos, which seems unfortunate. And I whether you can make that work or not is now irrelevant, because it's like, just go to the root level. There's a script that says something like short Linux build script, short Linux build and execute, and that builds the liblsl.so. And if you need the instructions, like the Froelich page is useful for just like, you don't need to look up where to copy that particular, or link that particular library, and that gives you PyLSL, right? So now what I'm just trying to figure out is whether I can use, to your point about what's the latest Raspberry Pi 4B, is it? Yeah, I think give you, so it's got native Bluetooth, and so should be able to use Hubert's
right
new branch, right? So he hasn't merged this branch, but like, install the PyLSL and then install his branch, and for Muse should be working. I would, the next thing is, because I've got, I can use the particular adapters for the Unicorn and just check BrainFlow as well, right? So I mean, like BrainFlow's supported Raspberry Pi for a long time, and
oh really?
Yeah, or certainly it supported Raspberry Pi before it supported Windows.
Oh wow!
on particular, some of that was because to support the G-Tech Unicorn, they needed he does need a binary blob from G-Tech. Like
okay,
he only got that recently from G-Tech, but so for if you do want Windows support with the I mean, if you want Windows BrainFlow G-Tech support, it is there now. And the cool thing with the next version of LSL, so the previous version was like December, November, I forget exactly when it came out, but the next version is going to you will have the pip installable on ARM, the pip installable liblsl. So like Chad, for those who aren't aware, Lab Streaming Layer runs great Slack, and Chadwick Boulay in Ottawa, I think, maintains their build and answers lots of questions there, and that's the latest on that. So it's super easy to build now. Like, I kind of wish that UC Davis students had this, 6 months ago. But anyway, they did manage to get it working anyway. So yeah, I actually had an email started to you to just update you with that. But next thing to try is EEG notebooks, or because.
Well, at least trying to get the Muse LSL stream, right? Because that's where Flavio's attempts were breaking down.
Oh, So do you have a link of where it's breaking down? Because he's got that blog post.
Yeah, I have a Google Doc that he shared with me that I can give you the link for.
Sure. Thanks.
And yeah, I'll just Slack it to you for now because it's kind of
no, totally. But that's cool though, right? I mean, in the sense that like it is working. Like ARM builds, I think, are going to become more important anyway, right? So you know, like I don't know how long. When Apple switched to Intel chips, well, actually, even before that, I mean, I was running Yellow Dog Linux on my Apple laptop back before it was supported on anything. I don't know. Does anybody remember Yellow Dog Linux out of? So I think they were. I think they were like from Fort Collins, Colorado.
I remember.
Okay, yeah, there you go. All right, woo. Good.
Pepperidge Farm.
Yeah. Well, this is like Alex and I are the only ones who knew iOmega. Yeah. So I mean, you know, there's actually some really cool new ARM boards. You know that.
Yeah. There's also a couple x86 boards that are pretty great now. Like I have a Latte Panda. Yep. I can actually grab it right now, an Atomic Pi, which is a pretty cool one. I know. I'm trying to remember the one.
Odroid H2 Plus. Yeah.
Odroid.
That's what I'm rocking.
Yeah.
That's been. Yeah. And you can put up to 32 gigs of RAM in it, but it's a nice little board. Yeah. So, Celeron. It works. Works good.
I'm gonna extend this particular Raspberry Pi to do like better audio, and if you want to drive like Etymotic tube pneumatic, you know, so this is a good way to get sound into the fMRI just because they're just plastic tubes. Anyway, I'm gonna try this out, and yeah, like I don't know with the Raspberry Pi how much you know. I mean, it's actually got 2 HDMI ports on this new one. You know,
2.
Yeah, I know. Oh, okay. So
here's the Atomic Pi that I got sent.
Okay, what is that?
It's called an Atomic Pi.
Okay.
It's pretty beefy.
Yeah, it's beefy.
Is it for gaming?
No, or yeah, it could be used for that, but we have a specific use case at Noise Bridge for these. But yeah, there's so many options. I don't have my Latte Panda or any of my modified Raspberry Pis with me.
Yeah, I'm just looking over the options now, like the bundles, and there's little kind of hardware things. I need to figure this out. What the best option is?
Yeah, I'll find the one that I know Project North Star uses to run their AR headset as a literal pocket computer. It's pretty cool.
Somebody's Josh is asking about Friendly ARM. I haven't. I've definitely wanted to check out one of these RISC-V boards, but yeah. Anyway, I mean, getting Raspberry Pi is cool, especially if you only care about doing audio, and I think it'll be perfectly fine. It should be fine doing video too, but to really test that out, I would want to get some sensors on the screen and really test the timing. But we'll get to that. So, sorry, was somebody gonna? Sylvain did another presentation on Moab today at the Paris. We didn't have the developers meeting for Moab this week because it happened to coincide with the Paris Buzz and Review. But I know that there was definitely progress because Devesh and Sylvain have been working on the steady state VEP stuff. So lots going on there. Do check out Gitter. It's really been great to see this, see more and more people. I mean, again, like I still think this is an underused project in the sense that like everybody should be using this if you're doing algorithmic development. So yeah, I just wanted to, just say again that we haven't had a meeting of the Hardware Hub. But for those who are interested, you can, do check out the Hardware Hub if you are going to get a Muse device, or check the hub, see what devices that we have, and each of those, basically each of those links is going to save you some money. Any money that we get from that affiliate link goes to supporting NeurotechX, the nonprofit and the community efforts. So you get something cheaper. We get a little bit of that money as a finder's fee or affiliate link. And it's hopefully win-win-win. We're looking to get more devices added. And so, like I said, like Plato Science at the Buzz and Review talked about the fact that they were offering our members like a 15% discount or something like that. Like they're not currently linked. So if you want to be a part of the Hardware Hub and help us, get in touch with vendors, suggest vendors that that would be interested in offering a discount to us, get in touch with me, get in touch with Fiza, who will hopefully be joining us a little later. I know she had to finish some classes and maybe get some dinner. But hopefully she'll be joining us this evening. And I think, John, you sent me two kind of like sleep companies, like Dream, spelt with two E's, and another, shoot. And I've been trying to track, like, does anybody know the Hack EEG developer? It's like Starcat or something. So I posted a link to, let me just get these are all the crowd supply companies. So I don't know if John Nolte is on. No. These are, so John had talked about Neurostimduino, is a recent addition to crowd supply. Go ahead, it says coming soon, so they haven't actually started. But I still have never got in touch with the Hack EEG developer, and I think it still suffers from the kind of the same problems that free EEG does, in the sense that, like, it's really on you to kind of make that board safe, and how you're going to hook it up to, if you're going to hook it up to USB, or if you're going to hook it up with a battery, or but I would still love to see projects like that added to the Hardware Hub, like Spectra. so I mean, a Spectra is a great maker's kit that that we should be able to list, and I think Gene would give us a little affiliate link. Who is? I did talk with her recently. She is super busy with her PhD, but it's still a great project. And John isn't here, but we should both get our Spectra kits out and start collecting some data and putting some data sets, making some data sets available, because yeah, she's been doing some really cool stuff with the inverse methods that you can apply with this. And Spectra has its a GitHub project, OpenEIT, that I also heartily recommend. So that was that's anybody want to make any other recommendations for Hardware Hub? We had somebody a couple weeks ago join us from Neurofeedback group in LA. Has he come back? No.
Yeah. I think almost all the devices talked about during Buzz in Review last week would be really good to try to get on the Hardware Hub. There were quite a lot. And though some are still in like research and like clinical trial stuff.
Oh, sorry, you mean the like the main presentation, like the review of kind of like all the consumer, and I mean it also had like Zito,
yeah,
which is a clinically targeted device.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe a Zito would cost a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Like
I would love us to have all the devices that that EEG Notebooks supports. For instance, like
that's a good goal. Like right? That would work very well as a targeting or.
And I am going to get in touch with Christoph. What's the Brainco Focus Calm? I think Focus Calm is now available.
I would love to have all the neurostimulation devices that were presented during the BIR.
So, can you list a couple?
I think there was the NeoRhythm, the Fillmore, the.
Oh right, the Fillmore. Okay.
Zeros, something like that. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, that's okay. So, please, I mean, what we need to just add is a good
one
or something.
Yeah, I mean that would also help me a lot for looking at places to try to get review samples for NeurotechX, so we can start writing reviews for different hardware. I'm wondering, do you think the Hardware Hub would be useful to have certain things like eye trackers or pulse oximeters yeah.
I mean, absolutely. And do we have Blueberry in there already?
I think so.
I wanted to say we do, and then it's like maybe I should actually log in and see.
Yeah. Also, motion capture devices. I mean, I know they aren't used clinically too much yet, but in terms of physical therapy, I think motion capture devices could be really useful in the future.
So the big question is whether we list devices that we don't get a discount.
Yeah.
Right. It is, and I've certainly got no problem having. I mean, it would certainly be easy to split the Shopify into those that you get a discount and those that you don't, and so that we just at least have, it links to their store or something. And it is not easy to get to the hardware.
Yeah, that link is like
okay. No, we do. Blueberry's listed.
Okay, cool.
And
because it would be cool to get some things like I mean, would fitness trackers be something else? Like would Dora Ring? Or like, I mean, that's more of a sleep tracker in some aspects than general fitness tracker, but
I didn't realize we actually have a link to the NeuroSky.
Oh.
I mean, there's no discount though. So if you go to neurotechx.com, right, and not a lot of people know that you actually have a membership, so you can log into that. You can log in there, and then if you scroll down really, really far, you can find a link to the hardware hub and and a link to reveal the password that you need to get in there. So it is members only. And okay, so we're not currently getting a Muse discount. Did you see that 1,000 Muse study?
Yeah, it's Olive Criggleson, who's the Muse kind of cognitive experiment guy.
Okay.
He's done the most out of anyone. I saw the link and I was like, "Who's this going to be?" I thought it was 2 or 3 people it could be, and it was one of them. There's like 1,000 subjects, and just quite a lot of data and quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not seeing where I've got that. Drowsy is the is that the Norwegian? Where's Drowsy? Yeah, that's Norwegian. Okay. Okay. Well, please follow up on the hardware hub. Okay. If you are on Slack and you're interested. Yeah, bring back Neurofuss. Well, so yeah, I mean, Neurofuss is going to be expensive. I mean, that was the other question, right? It's like we're not listing, 128 channel EEG systems, even though I would like to, or we could link used ones that. Oh. Okay, there she is. Yeah, but if anybody does have the pricing on Neurofuss, I mean,
You should definitely do that. I mean, is there a standard place to get secondhand EEG?
Well, no, right? And so there are specialized medical device like eBays, if you will, so like .med, for instance, is like DOT med. you know, and I mean, it's dominated by like Nicolay and, you know, kind of traditional clinical EEG manufacturers. Right. And so, you know, but there's a good market for, you know, a lot of that equipment. So you can find some research systems, but I think a lot of research systems sit because they just don't think that they'll be able to find somebody interested in the, you know, secondhand goods, or, you know, like they'll wait for a grant that gets them not only the equipment, but also kind of like the resources to run it. I'm not sure. But follow up with us on the Hardware Hub, and we would certainly love the help.
Yeah. I just noticed that one I talked to you a bit earlier today about, but the Next Mind headset. I mean,
oh yeah,
yeah.
So they presented today at Paris.
Oh, they did? Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was cool. So I mean, you know, we know what it is, right? Or, you know, like, again, like it's an 8-channel EEG system that is designed to sit and, you know, over your occipital pole. and it's a software development kit that is designed to, you know, add flashing in the right, you know, the right ways, and, you know, seamlessly with, you know, games, UIs, etc., so that you can control devices and, you know, add that kind of, you know, CHI to. Okay. Yeah.
I sent the link. One of the biggest VR tech YouTubers reviewed it yesterday.
Okay.
And I mean, he thought it had to do with the shapes. He never mentioned that it's actually using SSVP for what it's doing. And in the video, you can actually see the flashing for different things. They've actually done it really nicely. It's hard to see, but it is still a pretty quick response. It looks like it's still about a second, but they were able to make quite a few games using it already, and it looks pretty interesting. I definitely recommend watching the video I just sent.
Sure. And you know, I brought this up. Ori had a kind of chat group last night, and, you know, somebody was just like, well, you know, I haven't seen any BCIs really work, you know. And I was like, when it's kind of like, when it's fully open to, you know, trying to do, you know, emotion detection or things like that, where it's, you know, I've definitely, I know why there are issues with, you know, what features are you really looking for in the EEG stream, and but, you know, the steady state Veep stuff, it just works, right? like this is why it is used in like assistive technology. It's why, you know, it's the kind of thing that Cognition, you know, Cognition One is using. Yeah, I mean, you know, BCI spellers and things like that are devices that, you know, get something done. Like, these aren't research projects; they're really engineering projects. It doesn't allow you to do everything. Like you get these limitations that Arvind talks about. Arvind Ravi, who came to talk to us about his you know, PyTorch SSVP pipeline. You know, there's like only so many frequencies that you can use, and, you know, you've got to move your eyes to them, and rest there for at least a little bit of time. But yeah, I want to switch over to it's 7 o'clock, so I want to switch over to Garrett first. But I am curious about this. We've talked about this. Sorry, Manuel put a link to OmniPemf, and I think that's one of the devices that we've talked about before, where we're not exactly sure what OmniPemf does. And I'm not making a direct connection, but I did think I think it was I think Balder in his talk, Play-Doh Science talk, was talking about some, some companies with disreputable product development. So not saying what this is, but we are looking to do teardowns of particular devices. And is that what we talked about, Manuel? What were we going to tear down?
Yeah, we can try to tear down the stimulation device that they are selling.
Okay. I mean, I think it's also it could be that like it's just a marketing thing where it's just like they're marketing people like it's doing TDCS, but they're calling it like, what was it, like low field RTMS or something, or RTMS or something. It's just like, I don't know. Anyway, Garrett, if you don't mind, if you could introduce yourself and tell us what you're working on.
Yeah, for sure. So I actually, can you all hear me, by the way? Just make sure. All right, yeah, so I have a few slides that I can share. All right. So yeah, I'm part of Brains at Play at the University of Southern California. And we're generally trying to develop front-end web BCI experiences. So just sort of engaging experiences on the web that can be connected to by anybody, including people without headsets, or if you have a commercial EEG headset, you can stream your data to our servers and connect to some games.
Well, sorry, just a sec here. Oh, okay, you were going to tell us. Okay, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's plenty.
I wanted to hear about your background. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I'm a bachelor's in computational neuroscience. I'm actually just receiving that from the University of Southern California, and I'm transitioning into a master's in media arts, games, and health. Cool. Which is really an interdisciplinary program that bridges sort of my two passions, which is the brain and just engaging members of the public and having some sort of fun experience with it instead of keeping it within the research sector. And we're supported by Mariantina Gotsis from the Creative Media and Behavioral Health Center, Dong Song at the USC Center for Neural Engineering, where I actually worked for a while trying to build a memory decoding device for hippocampal recordings.
Cool.
And Dimitris Gramenos from ICS Fourth.
And
so the main reason I'm here, or did you want to?
Yeah, sorry. What's ICS Fourth?
Institute for Computer Science for something in Hellas. So he's Greek.
Plus the programming language. Cool. And I put a bunch of links in the meetup agenda. Were you involved, like, I think at the beginning of the week, like Monday or Tuesday, I think the USC Smart VR Center?
Yeah. So they're actually one of our sponsors for what I'll be talking about. Really great group.
Okay. Sorry, you're going to talk about them too?
No problem. Yeah, there's plenty here. There's plenty.
I'll let you talk. Okay.
Cool. So yeah, the main reason I'm here is to talk about the Brains and Games International Design Fiction Competition, which is running from February 1st to March 20th. It's all online. It's free and open to everybody. What we're really looking for is creative ideas for brain responsive and brain controlled games. We have some formal documents to fill out, basically just some forms on who the players are, where they'll be playing, maybe considering a little bit about the ethical issues associated with some of these games. And it's intended to be sort of as easy as possible to submit. We don't have a high bar, so you don't have to actually develop a game. It's really just thinking about the past, present, and future of EEG-based entertainment or BCI-based entertainment. I would say it's not even restricted to EEG.
Is there a limit to the number of submissions per person?
Oh, that's actually a really good question that I have never gotten before.
Morgan knows why.
Let me get back to you on that, but I'm gonna say it's team-based, so you can't submit on your own. So that might restrict you a little bit. But if it doesn't, go ahead. I mean, I'll get back to you if we have we put the hammer down. But for now, think about it.
Yeah, I already have 5 games, game design documents, pretty well written for brain controlled games.
Awesome.
So, but say a little bit. I mean, February 1st is like a planning workshop.
Yeah, so I still have a few more slides. So yeah, this is just one of the things that we posted on Facebook. But we have 3 different categories for submission, and just what you were describing. Maybe you don't have to limit yourself to 1 submission, but maybe 1 submission per category would be nice. So we have brain games, which is just very, very general. We have VR, Neurotech, and Health, which is sponsored by the Smart VR Center at USC. And computational art, is the only one that requires a prototype. The rest are simply just design documents. And we expect some sort of front-end web prototype. So it's very, very simple, almost like a sketch, and I can show an example of that soon. In terms of prizes and awards, so we're gonna choose 12 teams to present in an international public showcase on March 20th. Each team member from those groups receives copies of the Brain Architecture game, which was developed at the Creative Media and Behavioral Health Center. 6 of those teams, actually, this is an outdated slide. That's my bad. 12 teams, so all of them will receive at least 1 EEG headset, their choice of a Muse-2 or Open BCI Ganglion. We are trying to get more funding to award these to every member of the winning teams, but with 2 to 4 people per team, that's quite a lot of headsets, and we almost have enough for 2 per team. So that's just sort of an ongoing goal in a developing prize category. And the big prize that we do have is that the top team from the VR, Neurotech, and Health category receives $5,000 to develop their game into a functional prototype that we will showcase in the fall. So that's sort of the biggest prize, and some people may not want to develop a prototype. Some people may also not have the experience in VR to do that, but we are nevertheless encouraging submissions from as many people as possible here. And yeah, as Morgan was mentioning, on February 1st, we're kicking it off with a brainstorming workshop hosted from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. This might be a little bit awkward for some people, but the good news is that it's not required to submit to the competition. It's simply a way to support team formation and the generation of ideas. We do have 2 interactive experiences already up on the web. So this was something that I created with my team called the Brainstorm. I can pull up the interactive example because it's much more interesting, I would say, but it allows for connection with through BrainFlow to the web. So any BrainFlow compatible device can stream here, and you can visualize EEG in real time.
Hey, Garrett.
Yeah.
Jenny's asking, do you have to be US based to enter?
No, it's so the good thing is that it's international, so anybody can apply. The only restriction is that we can only promise hardware to US based teams. We're going to try to get them to as many people as we can, but we may just face some logistical issues. So we're putting that caveat in there, but anybody can apply. Anybody gets the digital awards, including the presentation during the showcase. And I guess in addition to the international sort of nature of the competition, we also have prize categories by age group. So for each of the 3 categories, we have 4 winners, hence the 12 winners. 2 of them will be over 18, and conditions permitting, one will have a oldest member between 13 and 17, and one will have an oldest member of under 12 if we get those submissions. If we don't, then we'll just bump up to probably the high school category, and if not in high school, then up into the adult category. But we're also encouraging younger people to submit and sort of get involved in the neurotech community. So if you know any younger people, definitely send them over here. I am hosting a free class through the University of Southern California to support game submission for high school students as well. So if anybody's in that age demographic, just feel free to reach out to me.
Oh, that's awesome. And are you using a kind of like a particular platform? I mean, is this like Unity development or?
Right. So what we're trying to do is make all of these accessible on the web.
Gotcha.
So the ideal is that these could be ported over to some sort of web-based experience.
Sure.
There is like WebVR and all of that, but it's not a hard requirement for the idea. It's mostly just in terms of our end on implementation. If you're looking to implement the game after the competition in collaboration with us, we would support web development, but the other sorts of Unity-based things we may have less support for.
Yeah, cool. Well, keep
maybe I can give a little bit of a demo on like why web development is sort of the way we've been going. So I just developed this yesterday. I actually got a Muse 2 headband because we're intending to give those as prizes. So I figured, we probably should be able to have a demonstration of how this works. So I'm turning the Muse on right now. I click Connect Muse. The data is probably not going to look super great, but it connects directly to the browser and it's streaming on the blue line there. Does anybody else happen to have a Muse?
I mean,
might be a long shot.
Sure.
Yeah, John's raising a hand. I've got a 2016 here.
All right. So if somebody wants to come on to this website and connect their Muse, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the web API, but I think it should be simple enough. Maybe you have to connect Bluetooth beforehand, but that might be the
that's my only issue is, trying to find a non-Linux. I mean, I've been surrounded by Linux systems that aren't currently working with
Fair.
Muse.
Yeah, and I should say that one other limitation is that for the Muse, at least, we're limited to Chrome because of their Bluetooth and USB compatibility, just being able to get that directly to the browser. But for BrainFlow devices, you can view this on any browser, or should be able to.
Well, actually, what I was thinking about our problems of getting Muse to connect. Let me see if I can get this to work.
Yeah, and let me just say, like, as a disclaimer beforehand, with what, 4 people maybe connecting in, I'm not sure how this is going to go. But
no, this is awesome. I mean, I can let me.
So yeah, the beauty about this actually is that right now all of this is just on the browser. It's not streaming to any server, so there's opportunity for individual and like personal experiences without sending any data. But if I connect to the server, everything's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be on here, and I think that might be the limitation is I've programmed this to only work with 2 people. That's wonderful.
Oh.
But we'll see.
Right now.
Okay, awesome.
Interesting.
Let me
If when the second person comes in, will it be a different color?
Yeah. So what should happen at least is this stops saying one brain on the network. I get some ellipse in the middle that grows and shrinks based on how similar our brains are. Yep, there we go. Although, is the data streaming between us? Maybe
no,
not.
I'm not. Sorry, I'll disconnect.
Oh, there we go. Something's working. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. What is that red? The red circle and the blue circle. What is that?
Yeah. So the red or blue circle corresponds to the similarity between the 2 EEG patterns. Just Pearson correlation coefficient.
I mean, this is This is cool.
And so the idea is to give visual feedback on synchrony, so that, I mean, in theory, right, you become more synchronized, but that's quite a long shot. Just give it, maybe alpha beta, but if you use EEG bands, maybe it would work. But right now, this is very, very crude.
So when I hit, I mean, I'm connected, or my Muse is solid.
Mm-hmm.
But when I hit connect Muse, or like the connect Muse button doesn't do anything except turn purple when I move the mouse.
Oh, weird. You are on Chrome?
I'm using Chrome on Linux.
Okay. There should be like a little Bluetooth. I guess I can go back and
if I hit connect Muse, I should get some sort of pop-up, right?
Yeah, so if you hit connect to Muse, it should be right by the lock icon on the top left on your URL bar, and it should pop up there.
I can tell if I'm connected or not. I mean, I'm seeing a signal in my screen, but I don't think that's my real signal. It is, or is more like an animation?
So it should be a pretty literal representation of the voltage stream. There's some scaling there, and obviously it doesn't scale based on how the amplitude is, so it's not normalized between -1 and 1 or 0 and 1. It's just there, really. But yeah, it should correspond to your actual data stream from the Muse.
Okay.
As long as you are connected.
Yeah, it says here that it only shows me the option to disconnect. I guess I'm connected.
Yeah, you are on the server then. It's probably you and I. Yeah, so this is the basic one that works with Muse. I threw this together yesterday, so apologies for the crudeness of it. But we also have Brainstorm, which is the more complicated version of this that works with BrainFlow. Right now I've tested it using Daisy Cyton, but I mean, in theory, it works with all of them. I just haven't promised much. So we have a 3D brain with real-time EEG on it. All of this is just 2 simulated brains. So in this user information, you can see 2 different brains. It's 50,000 point cloud that is being rearranged into these different patterns. So again, so we have data streams where this is just the voltage readout from the 2 quote-unquote brains. There's a little bit of jitter on the stream just because of all the data. This is working in straight WebGL, which is super, super fun. If you haven't engaged with it, it's a trip. That data, the voltage data, is projected to this 3D brain with 1020 EEG coordinates. Right now, it's just the standard deviation of voltage power. So blue is lower voltage standard deviation, and red is higher. We also do synchrony and all of the sort of conventional EEG bands as we go up in frequency. It also goes up in power, so that hasn't been totally worked out. The same thing can be said for the channels. So we have synchrony and, I mean, just very basically like alpha power. And the core of this, I mean, besides the bit of fun user interaction where you can sort of morph the brain, is the group dynamics visualization. So this is, again, something where we're trying to look at the, did I connect? Oops. My computer must not like streaming to all of you at the same time.
Right.
But we're trying to look at the synchrony between the 2 brains, and instead of having that ellipse in the middle of the screen, this is scaling the 3D brain and changing its color based on how synchronized the brains are. We have sort of a basic sign-in portal where I can just click guest access, and this takes me into the live experience. So right now there's no brains on. I think the gist is clear. We have a Python script that streams using BrainFlow the data up to here, and the same visualizations apply, except it would be live data.
That's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
Hey, just wanted to ask, I was curious, where did you get that brain point cloud data from? Is that like publicly available somewhere?
Yeah, so I ripped something off of VisBrain using in Python, and I reached out, and he's like, I have no idea where it's from either. So
okay, cool.
Yeah, so I can't answer that better. I probably should be able to, but yeah. If you can give me one that's validated in terms of like what kind of brain model it is and all of that, I mean, I'd be very, very happy. But right now it is unidentified brain with a brainstem and a cerebellum. Otherwise, I would be using Brain for Blender, which is another wonderful 3D brain model.
That's cool. Cool. That's really this is great. I mean, and so I see. You've tested this with Neurosity as well, then?
That's a little bit more speculative.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, I don't think I removed that in time. You should, again, in theory, be able to stream using BrainFlow, and I have it available on the Python streamer as an option. But I haven't heard anything from Alex Castillo, who I had been talking about with it. So that's to be decided at this point. But if anybody has it, I mean, get back to me and let me know.
Just so you know that, yeah. The Brainder.org is the developer of some really amazing neuroimage analysis tools. By the way, so that his Brainder, I mean his scripts for Blender compatibility were available a long time ago. I guess they're still being used. That's awesome.
Yeah, it looks like my computer's dying right now. So
you're not streaming?
I'm not screen sharing right now. My hands are not in front of my body. There's just a little bit of a lag. Maybe it's different for you.
Turn off the video. That can help a lot.
I will try to click on the interface and hope it does something.
Okay, totally.
But I can hear you all fine. So
this is great. So I think I saw there you've got a Discord server.
Yes, that probably should have been another one of the links. So I can post all of those in the chat.
Sure.
Once my computer stops having a seizure and record all that. The main link where you can access basically everything that I talked about is brains@play.com. There we go. That's the competition link for signups and in the course and Discord. And I can give some specific links as well for those interested.
Yeah, great. And you can check. Well, I'll just get those too. But I put links to your GitHub and as well as links to. I mean, check out the presentations that were part of the Smart VR USC Smart VR event that was like Monday or Tuesday too. Just some really great, some really great VR, health related VR projects that are happening down there.
Yeah, one final thing I would like to add is that we're also hosting a public event called Livewire through USC Visions and Voices. It's sort of a public, it's like a high profile public engagement event sort of venue at USC. It's the Arts and Humanities Initiative. This is open to anyone as well. March 5th, 4 p.m. PT. and we'll essentially just have some lectures on the ethics of brain stimulation, a sort of demo video of Brainstorm and what Brains at Play is all about, and a Discord conversation with some of the experts.
Yeah, that again, like super cool. A lot going on there.
Yeah, that one involves much less participation on your part, except potentially at the Discord.
I see.
That one's more passive than the competition.
But I love these. I love these examples. And yeah, and I think we've definitely got at least one person who's super interested to do some submissions. And I was glad that we did end up doing this today, just because I wasn't familiar with what Ryan. It was the Noisebridge meeting on Tuesday that Ryan posted all this events about this global jam.
Global game jam.
Yeah.
Which started yesterday. I'm helping organize one of the San Francisco chapters for the next couple days. I'm headed there right after, or headed virtually to the event right after this meeting. Yeah.
Great. Well, so I mean, Garrett, I hope you can hang out for a little bit longer, and if people have more questions and things for you, I wanted to just see if Sean is still with us, because Sean ran the NeurotechX Los Angeles event this weekend, and I wanted to try and get you guys, I mean, use it as an opportunity to get more LA people familiar with each other. So I see him connected, but anyway, if for those who aren't familiar, oh, there he is. Not yet. I can see your lips moving. I can. So maybe check what. Check in settings down the bottom right corner. Check what it thinks it's your input mic is. We all, yeah. Thank you for using Jitsi, but it might be using the wrong. Not yet. What do you? I don't know if you can hear. That is my daughter resisting bath time. That's not just a child being tortured. Well, while Sean is working that out. Yeah, so this weekend, Joel Froelich. Oh, and yeah, make sure. Yeah, Jackie, thank you. Somebody enabled the lobby. Let's make sure Sean can make it back in.
Can you hear me now?
Yay!
Boom. Let me see if I can get my camera to work for once.
Sure. No, so super appreciate it. Sorry for any Jitsi.
I think it's my web browser actually.
Okay.
I don't want to blame Jitsi for this.
Okay, all right. Well, we usually we do when things are going wrong, but well, we still like it. So I was just going to say a little bit about your event this weekend with Joe Froelich, and who's in the Monty Lab at UCLA, which is, you know, a very famous kind of disorders of consciousness lab, looking at people in various states. His specialty was, I want to say, was it Angelman
Syndrome? Yeah. So he's a postdoc in Professor Monty's lab, and he does a lot of work with EEGs.
Yep.
And EEG data. He seems like a pretty significant expert in that. Sorry, my video. It looks like my video is just not going to work. I'm not entirely sure. I get voice. I get sound, or I get voice or video. So I guess
yeah. If we have to pick, I'm certainly appreciate hearing you. It was a super interesting talk. You know, I mean, and some really interesting. You know, that's some really interesting neurology, right? So these are patients where their EEG is significantly, you know, that kind of like resting EEG is significantly different from, you know, normative sample.
And they're alpha band. So they basically, so what's unique about Angelman syndrome is that their EEG signature essentially looks like they're asleep, even when they're doing things that we would label as being fully awake. So working, he showed a video of a child who had Angelman syndrome that was, and by the way, the video, once I figure out how to edit video and do all that, which I should for being a strategic marketer, but I guess I'm not that strategic. It will be up at some point. But basically their EEG signature makes them look like they are asleep. Or if you just looked, sorry, let me take that back. If you looked at their EEG signature, you'd say, well, that's someone who's asleep. But they're clearly doing things where they're awake, they're responding to commands. And so that the lab in general, Monty's lab, deals within the investigation of consciousness. And it's a lab that leans, there are obviously multiple theories on consciousness, but this lab leans heavily towards IIT, integrated information theory, which, as far as I know, was sort of discovered by a professor at Wisconsin called Tononi, and also shared by a sort of a famous neuroscientist named Christoph Koch.
Yeah.
And so that, you know, they look at, and one of the things that Professor Monty is sort of famous for is this sort of tennis experiment where they had, and I may screw this up, but they basically had patients who were in a vegetative state, basically an fMRI, and had them answer questions, yes, no questions, based on two different modalities. So one would be like think about playing tennis, and the other is think about saying something. And so they were able to see, based on the responses, where they were. Obviously those two things occur generally in different areas of the brain, and so they were able to see, oh, these people can actually respond, and there's something going on there. And IIT essentially says that, or the theory behind IIT essentially says that there's this integrated consciousness can be represented by this integration of information across the brain. And one of the ways they've tried to measure that is by doing a stimulation of the brain, and then measure how various aspects of the brain almost kind of respond to that. So it's almost like you yell at the brain with TMS, and then, you know, you hear the echo from other areas of the brain. And if there's a good response, and that's sort of complex in some way, the person's conscious. If not, then the person may be less than conscious. And so there's these degrees of consciousness. And the Tononi stuff, the IIT stuff, gets interesting philosophically because you can take it to the level of your thermostat has some level of consciousness. And so there's a lot of interesting philosophical debates about what does it mean to be more conscious. And then they do things such as LSD, psilocybin, meditation, even as having this like even lot more integrated experience. And so people who obviously have been on those drugs or in some meditative state experience this sort of higher level of consciousness. Again, that's all sort of a philosophical debate. But
sure.
Sorry, what was that?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, well, one that John has put a link to Into the Gray Zone, which is Adrian Owen's book. Okay. That is, another great researcher in this area. It's got some really, some stunning examples, and but Owen and Monty and others, what they've really shown is that there are, I mean, this was what was so revealing, right? That there were a number of people that were being miscategorized, right? And that there was a lot more consciousness in a lot more people than was ever suspected.
Yeah, and so like vegetative states, for example. But the jury's out. I mean, like it's when I thought about consciousness, I think when most people do, you're either conscious or you're not. And now IIT sort of throws, not to say that IIT has been proven. I mean, by no means.
Yeah.
But like,
I would love. I'm very, very happy to have a conversation about what it is IIT actually computes.
We could refer to Scott Aronson's critique. I'll just throw that in there in case anybody's unaware. Very interesting writings. Anyway, I'm going to mute again. Sorry to interrupt, but IIT.
I just wanted to bring up something that Jackie brought up, which is absolutely. I mean, I was going to bring this up because there's a recent paper from Monty Lab that's using focused ultrasound stimulation, and this is. So I think is it in 2 patients? And if somebody can find the link, but anyway, this is some attempts to stimulate people to out of their particular disorder of consciousness. And yeah, so in addition to, there was a really nice focused ultrasound paper. Yeah, so this is the one that I sent to Gene. Which I mean, I think is, so this has got my favorite biophysicist, I guess, Axel Thielscher, who's the SimNibs developer, or develops the package SimNibs.
Very cool.
This is really nice paper, but I know Monty Lab had a paper from this, like, I want to say it was this week. Jackie, can you find that? Anyway, so Joel did this awesome presentation, kind of reviewing not only the patients that he looks at, and Zap-Zip is the colloquial name for this TMS, and then using complexity measures on the EEG, or in this case, compression measures on the EEG to say something about levels of consciousness, or again, like the more complex being kind of more conscious and awake. and therefore harder to compress.
And kind of one of the implications of his work and the work that they're doing at Monty Lab is that, at least one of my takeaways was a lot of the progress in EEG is happening certainly in the technology, but also in the analytical tools and the mathematics essentially behind it. So he talked about the transition from evoked potentials and fast Fourier transforms to this complexity and this I forget the name, live something, which is basically just a different way to sort of look at the data, but provides unique, interesting things. But
yeah, live sample compression. It's LZ. Yeah. It's a fundamental computer technique. It's the most, that analysis. I don't know. I was tuning in what's happened here, but the paper that came out about a year ago from like somewhere in London, right? Injecting DMT. They use that too, and they have a good explanation of the levels. But that's wild stuff. Just using computer compression to measure complexity makes perfect sense when you think about it. It's so obvious, but it's just a nice crossover. Muting again. Sorry. Thanks.
No, not at all. That's a great point. And so, go for it.
Well, I just got the UCLA news about this Monty Lab thing, which was from literally from today. But
very cool. So
do we have
we're doing a
paper?
Sorry, what was that?
They're a paper from 2 days.
Just give me one. It's from Brain Stimulation. Here's the link.
Yeah, that's cool. I have to show this to someone later tonight.
but finish it out though, Sean, in terms of the he led into discussion about sensory deprivation tanks.
Yeah, so
and he wanted to propose a hackathon.
Yeah, so the part 2 to this, and we're we're in LA. We're not as active as y'all are up here. We're too busy on our Instagrams, but we're trying to up it a notch this year. And so part 2, so we have a lot of actually interesting stuff coming up, I hope. So part 2 to Joel's talk is going to be a hackathon. The next research that he wants to do is essentially putting people in a deprivation tank and analyzing what that does as an extension of meditation being an altered state of consciousness. And the challenge of the float tank is that you've got very saline water, and you've got and you have an enclosed tank generally. So how do you get signal out? You can't use wires because it's closed. You have to be very careful about the saline water because it'll bridge the electrodes. Yeah. And because it's a deprivation tank, you want couldn't use like a big suction cup to someone's forehead, because you want it as passive, and you're supposed to be in there relaxing. You can't have this like feeling like your brain's being sucked out your third eye. So it's a challenge that we're doing. Obviously, COVID makes that much more difficult. So we're evolving now what we're going to do. But it looks like we're going to come up with ideas and then try to partner with a university to actually sort of develop the winning idea if we can. So that's one thing. We're also going to have a fireside chat with Cindy Wu, who founded experiment.com. We're fascinated. Part of what the talk, or what I was pressing Joel on during the talk, is like, what are the challenges of being a scientist? And so I'm very interested personally in creating a core of people who are professionals that have, development skills and can go to researchers and sort of say, hey, what do you need to expand your research? And so basically build that group. But Cindy is transitioning to a different project called Jelly, which is sort of like a way of building or listening to or reading PDFs on steroids. And so she'll talk about her journey with into the world of research funding and how she sort of like disrupted it at the ripe old age of 19, and her co-founder was 16. So that's pretty impressive. And then we have a few others that we're trying to get. I'm working with. I'm fascinated by the integration of mathematics and neuroscience. A lot of sensory and perceptual data, and even the brain itself, is better represented by hyperbolic geometry. And by the way, I'm immediately out of my depth on this in terms of it. I'm a math wannabe, but there is a very interesting researcher at OSU has found new ways of visualizing hyperbolic geometry using 3D printing. So we're thinking about figuring out a way of getting him to talk. So just a bunch of different stuff. We'd love to have everyone here, because as everyone knows, San Franciscans are way smarter than Angelinos, and so we just need your. Don't ever tell anyone. Don't ever tell anyone here, although they wouldn't listen to you. Too busy looking in the mirror. But we would definitely love to have your genius on our hackathons, and we really want to have more hackathons that actually build stuff and get stuff in the hands of ideally scientists. We had a relationship with a she spoke at our group. She's just does fMRI visualizations, and she wanted this sort of how this idea started. Is she wanted children are not good in MRIs for obvious reasons. They don't like no one likes to be in fMRIs, but children obviously just don't want. So how do you calm them down or get them ready or have them practice an fMRI? So that was sort of like the idea that we never executed on that we wanted to, and now we sort of are trying to do these other things, and this building a new EEG system is kind of like an intriguing challenge.
Yeah, so. I mean, I love it. It is a. I'd prefer to build a new EEG system than try to make one work inside a saline, a saline pool. But
I mean, it's doable. I had a friend who redesigned a VR headset to work in one of those pools because I don't remember if this was either for NASA or someone, but they needed waterproof VR headset. So my friend designed it, and I don't think it would work in a saline solution because the salt would screw up something in it. But definitely think it's possible.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting challenge because anytime you come up with something that's kind of like an interesting solution, you're like, well, but because there's human factors or the fact that the person is kind of trying to float and have this experience where their body dissipates, and if something's on their body, which it has to be, obviously it's measuring something on their body. Well, I guess it doesn't have to be. My whole point of setting up the hackathon was to try to make it as vague as possible so that like someone comes up with some genius solution that revolutionizes everything. But basically, like the idea is, he had an idea for it, but the company, I forget the company that they're all named Neuro. That's not narrowing it down. There was some company that basically had a website that looked like it was going to be feasible, but you could tell by the website that it was vaporware. So,
yeah. Well, if you've got a link, I'm always interested in good vaporware sites.
I'll try to find it.
But yeah, I mean, I wanted to. Well, one, it's awesome to have you join us. I don't know if Andrew has been able to make it. He said he was going to maybe try and get in later, but LA is the biggest city on the West Coast. And we would love to see, more NeurotechX stuff happening. And, anything we can do to help. So it was,
I appreciate that.
It was awesome. I loved the event. It was super cool. And, because I've had a chance to talk with Adrian and a few other kind of disorders of consciousness people, I was kind of familiar with the directions he was going, but it was he had some great examples, and we're also familiar with like the Robin Carhart Harris and the kind of people that are looking at inducing altered states of consciousness by using psychedelics and other drugs, which is another, at least there we can do recordings without doing it in a saline tank.
Yeah, you all have Oakland, and completely decriminalized it. So
potentially safe spaces where this can happen, but
there's a church I was told about, or like I'm using air quotes. You can't see that because obviously my computer has chosen one mode of input, but there's a church somewhere in, I don't think it's Fruitvale. I think it's got to be Oakland somewhere, but it's basically a church dedicated to psilocybin.
Yes.
But
yes, there is.
We've also got. UCSF is running, the psychiatry department here is running trials. Currently, is looking for people to join a bipolar study, and so I believe it's the band lab. Let me see if I can find it. I put a link, just so you know what I dropped in the chat. I put a link for this mathematics of brain modeling talk that's coming up next week. It's a UCL guy who's talking in the maths department in Oxford. Super interesting stuff that is more in the vein of like the kinds of stuff that SPM implements. But
there's also, I'm trying to remember, I think it's Counterculture Labs over in Oakland. They have quite a few people who know a lot about different types of mycelium, and I know they were making mycelium mead a while back just to see if it did anything. And
I'll certainly never forget when I took my at the time 4-year-old daughter there, and they said, "Oh yeah, we've got a kids room." And so this woman takes my daughter and my wife to the kids room, and they open up the door, and there's just like 8 people all smoking pot. which we live in Haight-Ashbury, and like my wife, we've passed much worse things, like right on Haight Street, right? But she thought that was a mistake. The woman was super embarrassed, like she had no idea. Anyway, that was my for some reason I haven't been able to convince my wife to go back there.
I'd like to propose a partnership with Zidedoor, ZIDEDOOR.com in Oakland.
Okay.
Church of Ethnogenic Plants.
Gotcha.
EEG study, FNIR study. Here's
Band Lab at UCSF that is currently running trials in I believe it's a bipolar psilocybin project. So
can whoever did found the link to that church post it in chat? I've had like 2 people ask me if it exists.
There's a lot. there's a lot to like about doing, using some of these drugs as essentially as like a similar technique to zap zip. I mean, to some degree, right? It's like we're going to fundamentally change what your electrical brain activity looks like, and but we'll be able to do it in a controlled fashion, in the sense that, like, the kind of the DMT studies that Robin Carhart Harris has published. These are very fast onset, very fast washouts. So you get to, and you can do this on healthy people. So some like there's it's difficult to interpret some of say like Froelic's data, because some of those patients already have such abnormal EEG. You don't really know like how their brain responds to TMS.
And also, so he and I talked. I don't think he mentioned this during the talk, but he and I talked about that privately. And obviously, well, not obviously, but doing research with children, especially convincing parents of children who have such an issue like that is scary, and they're not going to, the child already has so many problems, and the parents themselves are not, they're not neuroscientists. So convincing them to do something that may or may not have any benefit is difficult.
Sure.
That being said, I mean, I'm not sure, how they've tried it. UCLA and any large university is going to have a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of, y'all are in the Valley, so like break things quickly is like the motto. That's not the motto at a
well, I think in the case of patients at the med center, there's going to be a lot of hoops to jump through, and
but medical stuff shouldn't be go fast and break things. I went to I know someone who gave a great speech that was go slow and mend things. And it made a lot of sense. I mean, like, in the medical space in the Bay Area, go fast and break things cause Theranos to exist. And
so Paul's,
at least the theory is bounded in reality.
So Paul's added at Facebook, they went from move fast and break things to move fast with stable infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a joke.
Okay. I like it. Yeah. So, but I want to. I'd love to keep in touch, and I'd love to follow up on some of these topics. I mean, there's actually an annual like mathematics and neuroimaging. I think it's like a summer workshop that is run out of UCLA, or has been previously. And you've got a world-class maths department there.
Yeah, I mean, we're very lucky. I mean, despite the general population, we're very lucky to have a lot of incredible people, incredible universities there. We've got UCLA, USC represented well tonight, obviously, and then Caltech. So, we're very fortunate. So we're just trying to, we try to help organize a student. So actually, it's interesting. We talk about student groups. We had the foundation of a student group at USC, but I think the person who was running it was very busy and wasn't able to sort of like follow through on that. And then the UCLA one is interesting, but it's an undergraduate endeavor, and we had a a meetup with them, and 40 people showed up. It was crazy. The entire classroom was filled up, but
That's all.
but everyone is, but it's funny because they were all like freshmen, and you remember what you looked like when you were a freshman. You're like, wow, that everybody's really young. And they all just sat there like very politely. Nobody raised their hand. It wasn't a discussion. It was very much like they were attending class. And very entertaining, but they were all doing it for credit. So it was sort of like, we found, although we did find a bunch of people from that were very cool. So we're trying to do more with student groups with an emphasis more on we're leaning more towards one, how can we help science and how can we push science forward? And that's kind of like the angle that we're taking, because we've, those are the presentations that we most enjoy, and those are the presentations that seem to do the best. We had an amazing guy named Ben Yetten who ultimately went to work for Oculus. I guess it's controversial to bring up Facebook and Oculus, given the fact that they require you to register. But sideswiping that, he talked about his research so they basically put these people into VR and had them walk around a VR maze, and then had them go to sleep and measured and prioritize certain memories with a bell. I think it was just a bell sound. And so when they measured someone going into a sleep spindle, so when you go to start to dream, there's this pattern of EEG that happens. It's called a sleep spindle. I'm obviously not an expert, just enough to regurgitate it, but it essentially allows the sleep spindles what sort of seems to like prioritize the memories that we're going to replay during sleep. And so by ringing this bell, they prioritize a certain part of this map, as I understand it. And so when they were to go through it the next day, they were much quicker at that. And I was like, why are we not doing this for all learning? Why is this not a de facto thing? So anyways, just a lot of interesting stuff. And then how do we give back? Because a lot of the presentation, and that's why our part 2 is about a hackathon, because we feel so grateful to the scientists that are giving their time to speak to us. We want to make sure that this is equitable and that we're giving back in some way.
One thing I think might help with student clubs, I know it helped at the university I went to, was if it's a student club, but students from other local universities could join that club, like it wasn't restricted only students at that university. Like a couple of the clubs I was in were between 100 and 500 people, only because literally 5 or 6 universities all had their students go through these clubs. And I think for like UCLA or a lot of the colleges down there, it would probably allow for people who have more time than others to take on some of the responsibilities of the club, because clubs live and die by the people running them and how easy it is to pass the torch. Yeah.
So you're suggesting just one big Los Angeles student club, or are you because the event was open to anyone, but the dynamics of Los Angeles are such that no one travels, and it's like in parking at the university, any university except for Caltech is like super annoying and kind of expensive. So caravanning from like USC to first of all, those universities dislike each other, but
true.
But obviously, if you don't care that much about football, you don't care that much, or basketball, you don't care that much about the rivalry, so you're willing to do it. But it's also like a huge pain in the ass, and as a general culture, we are avoidant of ass pains. So, we want to do it a little bit more, but we're just, like I said, our 2020 was pretty silent, so we're just trying to spool up.
Sure.
and get moving.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and you said you had somebody who presented on a visualization, like brain imaging visualization.
Yeah. So she is a professor at USC.
Gotcha.
And she does fMRI studies. And I'm blanking on exactly what she talked about. It was 2 years ago.
Oh, okay. Would that have been on Meetup?
It would. I'm sure we put it on Meetup. We didn't. I was in charge of recording, and I had a iPhone 6 at the time, so I'm just going to tell you that didn't work.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, so yeah, I mean, let's keep in touch. So Jackie's asking if there's a link to the hackathon. I don't think yet. And
I literally finished writing it today. Andrew, sort of went through, gave his stuff, and Joel is going through it and finalizing it, and then I'm going to post it as soon as I get stuff back from Joel. So, and then I'll send it to you, and you can share it with the group.
Absolutely.
And I'm also going to post it on the. I'll post it on the Slack as well.
I mean, post it on the Slack. We've all got problems with Slack in the sense that like it's losing our history. I can't see anything in 2020 now. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But I'd love to keep in touch about like what we could potentially do to help with some of these other kinds of initiatives, like like looking at hyperbolic graphs is something that I know some people who are interested in that kind of stuff. I'd love to follow up. So I posted a link to the IPAM, which has done these mathematics and brain imaging events before. That was particularly old. But I know there are newer ones than that link.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
I don't think that's going to happen, or I don't know if that's going to happen this year, unless it's obviously virtual. I also dropped a link to Pamela Douglas's Google Scholar, just because she's an awesome kind of computational neuroimaging person who did like the last keynote, I think, at Maine, the Montreal AI Neuroscience meeting that was end of last year.
Awesome.
And, anyway, like she's doing great stuff. Brainmapping.org is Mark Cohen's site, and who's got lots to say about like the history of fMRI. He was there when they were doing the first fMRI studies, and has really eclectic, wonderful research history and all sorts of branches from there.
Yeah, and I mean all that. I think that's fantastic. I'd love to figure out a good way to store all of this so that we're sharing it. I mean, I know we use Slack, but like you said, it sort of disappears. You'll see, for us, one of my passions is education, specifically around education of math. In a past life, I founded a school in Pasadena, or public grade school in Pasadena.
Okay.
And so I'm passionate about how do you teach math more effectively, and
gotcha.
And so how do you teach higher level math and more abstract math? So you'll start to see that as well.
I love it.
And so hopefully that's I could talk all night about that, but
no. I mean that's super interesting, and it certainly relates to where we want, or the bar we want to put up for ed tech, which is like it has to make learning things, difficult things, easier, getting people to skill levels faster, And maths, like learning a foreign language, is something where there's some pretty objective bars that you can set for what people need to achieve.
Don't start me down the path of ed tech and and education. I will reduce this meeting to 2 people.
No.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different directions. Who was the so I think the Plato Science Balder, who was speaking not San Francisco, but maybe I think the Berlin Zurich Buzz in Review, and he was talking a little bit about Brinko, and he was like, what Brinko was doing, like it's not ed tech necessarily, but there's like determining when kids are losing attention is these were very valid things to try and pull out from the EEG, right?
Yeah.
Like I had a lot of I was open to what he was saying in terms of like they weren't really trying to do something that I didn't think they were running a scam, or certainly like there are plenty of people who are doing the same thing for the military in terms of drone pilots that are supposed to be attending to screens for 8+ hours, and can you detect that kind of thing. But at the same time, that's really different kind of work from the kind of work that like there's IARPA projects where they are trying to train soldiers to learn something faster. Like that's like it's a different thing. And like I'm not sure how useful EEG is. I'm not sure how useful brain stimulation is, but I like what they've done in terms of like setting out the metrics and for like this is what we're trying to get raw recruits to learn in 4 weeks or something like that.
Yeah. One thing I think that will also be useful with ed tech especially is virtual reality, like for displaying stuff like these hyperbolic math functions and geometries are much easier to explain in virtual reality than they are on a piece of paper or in a textbook. And some of these visualizations as well, just in general, like I don't think there's a metric yet for how well, like a EEG metric for how well someone understands something, but like there's a lot of people who I have talked with who can want ed tech to change, but they know it does not. The current system does not work for all that many people. I've had many couple-hour discussions about how broken education is in certain spheres of it, and how we're using a system that's between 300 and 1,000 years old currently for most of our education. And a lot of it doesn't work for what we have now. And I think neurotech will be a big part of fixing a lot of that as we understand how people can improve their memory, or just understand what differences different type of people have with memory and with learning, to be able to teach them more individually by understanding how they learn.
So
yeah, Vladimir... so the guy that we're in the process of trying to get to speak to us, who I mentioned, uses visualizations to explain hyperbolic geometry. Also, to your exact point, I think, I don't know if he created it or if there's a video on YouTube of him actually going through using VR to visualize hyperbolic geometry. So 100% what you're saying.
Vladimir, would you have something to add to this?
Yeah, well, I work at the math department, Orange County, University of California in Irvine. And for 4 years, I was undergraduate vice chair, so responsible for all the courses and syllabi and stuff. And for some time, I was trying to see what's available for VR teaching and everything. And so in the most recent inquiries, I asked someone how much it would cost to build something, and so the price quote was 100,000, and it was probably not on expensive side. So probably if UC wanted to do it for a range of their departments, they could probably do it, but it has to be initiated as a serious project. And the second thing is, if you wanted students to use this system, would they buy Oculus or what? Would you require everyone to spend a few $100s on equipment? Because I think that Google Cardboard wouldn't really work. The thing where you insert the phone, and it's probably not sensitive enough. But this is a real bottleneck, because it would be nice to have a real VR or AR system where students could be present via avatars and things like that. Because right now, I feel in the past year, it's been a big issue that students don't have a sense of community. So they need the idea that they need to show up at 10 a.m. at a particular location, and their peer group will be around them. So this sense, it kind of makes a difference for them. Otherwise, it becomes selling videos, and it doesn't work for 90% of the students.
Yeah.
I think if it was up to me, I would give everyone, or I would have every kid buy an Oculus to a Quest 2. I mean, because they're already spending how much per semester on textbooks, and you could replace all of those textbooks with a Quest 2. I mean, I'm obviously being a little bit hyperbolic in terms of my language and geometry, but I think
no, but
textbooks are gone.
I think the issue is just setting a certain standard. If as soon as you announce that this is a platform on which things can be done, people will start making content for that.
Yeah.
I have just a math co-author. She just likes to do hyperbolic geometry pictures for us art, for just self-expression. So I'm pretty sure that as soon as you say, okay, this is the place where this should be done, this is where it should happen. But now the problem is just to have a project started where you would do VR or AR for teaching.
Yeah, so I go to GDC every year, and a lot of Bay Area like gaming and like EdTech conferences, and I've been to a lot of discussions about how we do this stuff, and like I was at a socioeconomic roundtable for VR a couple of years ago, and we're kind of one of the groups that told Facebook that they should be selling their device below its actual manufacturing cost, which is highly likely in the Quest 2's case that it costs more to manufacture than they're selling, because they know the content is where they'll make more money. And I think instead of having every student get one, if the school gets enough for classes that would benefit from it, and then kind of like laptop lending, which I know a lot of schools that have literally laptop carts that can be rented for a class, and the Quest 2 is cheaper than just about any laptop other than a Chromebook. So
Yes.
it is very affordable for schools to purchase a large amount of them. But yeah, getting developers to actually develop what is needed is going to be a step. But I do think there's a lot of people that, like, if UCLA or UC Irvine said, hey, we're getting 10,000 Quest 2s and we need these applications done, and then either created a fund or something. Like, I think the UC system at large would create a fund, kind of like what they did. The California Community College created a makerspace fund that allowed 40 plus California community colleges to create maker spaces and create a curriculum around it. I think the same could be done for ed tech with VR and with neurotech, because getting some of the neurotech devices is getting pretty cheap as well. And I don't know many undergraduate people who, or even like high schoolers. I knew 2 high schoolers who ever tried an EEG headset when I was in high school.
Yeah. So if anyone knows any projects, I'm not an undergraduate vice chair at our department anymore, but I'm still connected to enough people, and I could go to current. And with math, computer science, there is enough existing content on YouTube and other things, so it will be easy to populate that VR space. Unlike maybe biology, chemistry lab, it's not that easy, but. We are one of the subjects where it would be easy to get content into this, and we could try, see what happens if we push. Because on the scale of a single campus, it's really tricky to find the money just for mathematics. But if it's mathematics and physics and computer science, and it's multiplied by 10 campuses of UC system, it could all be very feasible. You just need to do the platform once, and if it exists, then people will start inserting things, and the momentum will develop.
So this is my passion. My dream would be to sort of build an end-to-end mathematical curriculum. I was trying when I was
for what level?
Yes.
For
all levels. I think.
Well,
when I was founding my school, I was like, why do we? I mean, I know the answer to the question, but like I was trying to get our first grade teacher to teach. By the way, I'm sorry for derailing this conversation, but I was trying to get our first grade teacher to teach in binary first, in base 2 first, as opposed to teaching base 10, simply because you only have to memorize 5 math facts, and you can start to go down the algorithm of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, as opposed to, well, let me just figure out how to use my fingers, which then forces you to memorize about 300 math facts. But that and then you're right into computer science, you're right in all these things. I think the money is not an issue for several reasons. One, Facebook, the Chan Zuckerberg initiative has become one of the largest funders of all ed tech, and they're passionate about it. They funded a school, and I won't give my opinion of the school, and I won't mention the school, but it's a charter school. They created a technology up by you guys, and they just threw a whole bunch of developers behind it. And I don't know if they're still supporting it, but they put a lot of money behind it. And so then the Chan Zuckerberg initiative sort of professionalized, and now is giving a lot of money. And then you've got the Simons Foundation, who's one of the richest people in the world. He's also a mathematician, and he does a huge amount to support math education and math progress in general. He was literally the first quant in Wall Street. He created the first quant fund and made $1 quadrillion applying math to. He was the first one to do. He moneyballed Moneyball, except did it in a way that makes a lot of money. And so he's passionate about maths. I don't think that's the issue. I think giving and UCLA and the UC system is, I mean, I think they probably get behind it. I think it's just a question of content and what is like,
the content. The content is not that difficult because that's what I've been doing for 4 years. So someone comes from another school as a transfer student, and they say, "I've taken these courses. Are there any equivalents in UC Irvine?" And I see that on lower division math there is a uniform curriculum more or less across the country for most major lower division, upper division courses. There is an exact equivalent, not just in other UC schools, but other states and a lot of places. So just writing a unified curriculum for many things is not a big deal. It's just if we want to get it going in UC, there has to be some sort of proposal. This is the software platform. This is the hardware that's based on. These are the benefits, and it's feasible. Just for me, it was very hard to find the hardware and software basis.
Sure.
So, but maybe someone knows how to deal with this part.
I think my passion is, and this is the challenge, is really rethinking how we teach mathematics, not necessarily porting what's. I mean, if you look at, would anyone rather? And this is just sort of a simple evolution. I mean, it's not simple. It's actually extremely complex. But who would rather watch 3 Blue, 1 Brown versus looking at your average calculus textbook or a lecture, like a MIT lecture on calculus? Like, OpenCourseWare exists. So it's like, what can you do? It's like when websites first came out, most companies would just say, okay, here's my brochure. Let me like transition this onto a website. How do you then say, okay, this is what VR can do? VR's, how do we then do that math? How do we then apply the infinite possibilities of VR and also BCI to really supercharge mathematics education so that it is categorically different than what is possible now in any classroom on YouTube, with the most brilliant scientists. Like there's, you pick up any Dover or any like math book that's of advanced level. It's like you're basically reading Hebrew or Chinese. Like it's like you have no idea. But if you're not initiated, it's hard.
Well,
that is a problem.
It depends.
It should be democratized.
It depends whether you're talking about scalable or unscalable. If it's unscalable, then, for instance, I've barely visited any math classes in high school or at university because I was learning this in Russia, where there is this system of seminars, math circles. You're always within some sort of tribe. You're always within a small group where people despise grades. Even they despise. I mean, you're supposed to hide the time when you're reading a textbook, because the hip thing to do is to just get it by mouth and just listening and discussing this. And but this is not very scalable. And for scalable, I think we had a discussion with Alex today that the things that he did may be useful, but it probably will take a while to work out the technology. Yeah. So you would, I mean, the broad idea is that you would take very, very talented students and you would kind of try to steal their learning methods from them. And based on that, you could organize your virtual space. So would a picture help, a certain percentage of students if they're learning algebra, for example? And because again, there is a lot of pictures, videos, and this and that, but which of them are really relevant? And there would be probably at least 3 or 4 types of students, depending on which sensory modalities they prefer. But it needs to start with a recognized platform where everyone is pointing in this space. And I know that eventually someone will cut in and suggest a better platform. It will end up being something else. But just to get a stream of effort going in particular direction. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm super interested in this topic too.
Yes.
So let's put it, or like let's follow up on this too, in the sense that, like, I mean, I think it's I am coming from developmental psychology, so I also care about changing things for young kids. At the same time, like, getting some momentum behind this might take demonstration with essentially college kids in shorter time frames of examples where a multimedia like VR learning experience is able to compress a certain amount of material in a shorter amount of time, or is able to with a diverse set of students is able to navigate multiple different kind of learning styles or learning strategies. These are all like, we've got to operationalize these things and do the right kinds of demonstration experiments to show this.
Yes.
If
so
it works, right.
My point was, if someone needs syllabus for college level, I'm here. If someone wants to organize a pilot experiment to try to push it into UC system, I'm here. Yeah. So
yeah, that's awesome. So again, like, perfect people to have on this particular meetup this evening. So 8:30, and I just wanted to give a few other topics some time, and yeah, but like, let's follow up on this, Sean. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it inspired me to sort of set up another meeting that I'll invite everyone to about math. Definitely want. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, but I definitely want you to talk to our group. So, Vladimir, yeah, if you're open to
yes,
doing a presentation, I'd love to have you present.
On what topic? I can write.
We'll figure that out.
Okay.
We'll figure that out.
Okay. I think this could also just apply in general to education, and including neurotech education, which is one of those things that I think generally starts too late. Like, I would have loved to take a neurotech class in high school, and I mean, that would rely on a lot of different types of maths and sciences to understand, but would be a very noticeably applicable use case of a lot of different forms of math and science. And I think a lot of problems are that students can't see the actual application of certain things. When I've TA'd math classes, the most common question is, why do I need to know this? How is this used? And I usually could explain it, but it's something that's such a common question that it's quite surprising that it isn't incorporated into the system too well. And yeah, sorry.
Yeah, taking on the education system is not going to be possible this evening.
Yes, and I know Morgan wants to get on to other subjects, but I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself. Sorry, my camera's off, and look forward to talking more with you about math education in particular. But my name is Dan, and I'm from Moyes Bridge. And
awesome. I welcome it.
catch up with all the notes, but oh boy, I got a lot to talk about with math education, all the way back to the symposium on mathematically precocious youth, and the International Math Olympics, and all that. I have some family in that business. Yeah. Also, a daughter is currently doing a master's degree in education to teach math to middle schoolers is her particular interest. So anyway, I really look forward to talking more, but I'm going to turn it back over to Morgan.
I was in the last USSR team on International Math Olympiad, so I'm familiar with preparation system that they used. Yeah, so
there's I don't know if everybody's familiar with the Proof School, but the Proof School here in San Francisco is it's a really interesting, obviously math focused program for math Olympiads. Or math, precocious math students.
You all have some really amazing schools in SF. Really innovative public schools. We have far fewer than you do. You guys have really innovative stuff up there.
So again, multiple topics. The kind of the math and neuroscience. In particular, I think is something where we got lots of, we've also got a lot of overlap. And, in addition to the people here meaning like UCSF, Berkeley, Stanford, I just want to also point out that the kind of things that people are doing at Santa Fe Institute, which is also another great resource in terms of their online classes. So like I know they do a complexity class. I think that it's starting right now, and to learn about some of the other kind of measures, not just the compression measures, but the other kind of like entropy and other measures that Joel talked about briefly. So we'll follow up on all of these things, and come back at our hack night, or I don't know if Fiza is still here, but she was joining from Vancouver. I don't know if Paul's still on, but San Diego. I was definitely trying to bring together the West Coast groups so that at least we don't have to stay up past 9.
It would be good to think about obviously the individual groups, and maybe I'm not sure the benefit of autonomy versus for the individual cities. I mean, I guess I'm sure there is some reason, but I can't think of it. But it would be nice to have a full-on California group. I don't know if that's ever been thrown about, but I think that's a really interesting proposition.
Yeah, absolutely. And in particular, because we've actually talked about this at NeurotechX in terms of, developing courses and things like that. Like UC, this is the power of UC, is just, it's huge, right? And because we've got student chapters at most of the UC, the big UC schools, and to a certain degree, we've got city chapters. California, us as a group, could be remarkably powerful. I mean, this is why, joking aside about San Francisco, LA tropes, LA is the big city, right? So getting trying to draw, more LA people into a group that we're all working towards would be a great goal, because there's a lot more people interested there that we're not reaching so far.
Yeah, I think having virtual events like this, even after stuff ends, will be one of the biggest things that helps. Like, up until 2020, everything was in person, and the chapters really did stay separate, except when people came up for conferences. Now it's like anyone can join any one of the locations worldwide if they're awake. Or depending on their schedule.
I think that's spot on. I mean, our events in 2019 had 8 or 9 people in them, and our event last, or whenever it was, had 34. I mean, and we hadn't done anything for 20 days. Now, that being said, I put about $20 of Facebook promotion into it, and we had some international people, so there's that.
I need to ask you about that.
Well, my background is in strategic marketing, and so neuromarketing is actually something that I'm also sort of fascinated by. But
so we should talk, because sometimes we have John Nolte join us, who's up in where's he living now? It's like Mendocino.
Yeah, I think he's in Mendocino.
He's real Northern California, and anyway, but he can get us at least some Facebook credits for advertising purposes, and we've been trying to. Well, I wasn't sure how to use them, but
it worked well.
I'm happy to help that. Also, by the way, when you were talking about the Muse headsets earlier,
yeah,
they donated 4 to us. I can't imagine they wouldn't donate to you all.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, yeah, we don't really need them, or
okay.
I've got multiple 128 channel EEGs downstairs.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, I mean that is the thing. I was pushing it more, just like, anybody who is in NeurotechX, like, if you are going to purchase a system, please get it through the hardware hub, because not only do you get a discount, but we get a little bit of that money, and it goes to, if Interaxon isn't giving people systems, then we want to, with things like the diversity committee, we want to be buying systems to provide to underserved groups and things like that.
That's another reason why having physical chapters can be important, because this hardware has to end up someplace, and right now a lot of it is in only a couple of different locations, and usually where the mainstream developers are. I mean, California, some of Canada, some of Europe, whereas there's a lot of the world that does not have easy access to any of this neurotech hardware. And it's not at all that they don't want it, it's literally that they can't access it. It's
that was also whether we could build, whether something like Easy BCI can we make essentially biosignal devices for say $20.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to follow up on all this, and yes, Unity.
Yeah.
I'm down with this. Does anybody else have any topics that we haven't covered that they've been interested to cover? I saw Paul. Oh, well, he's not here, but that Connectome harmonic stuff I can say stuff about. Go ahead.
Yeah. I quickly wanted to share my screen. I don't know who heard about what was announced this weekend, but that Valve reveals partnership with OpenBCI to make gaming more immersive. The original interview, I'll post a link to in the chat, but I know a number of people here all know both who Valve is and who OpenBCI are, and how like there's a lot of people who've taken notice of this recently. I mean, like especially in the VR space, this was released yesterday, already earned 70,000 views, which I hope at some point NeurotechX YouTube videos can get that high. Because, I mean, we are one of the few groups that could really deep dive into this topic more than most YouTubers or even most journalists can. It's really great for the industry because this is going to start branching the gaming community and the neurotech community much faster, because pretty much anything Valve does works other than release Half-Life 3. But their headset, their VR headset, their current one, had an 8-week back order since it released in March of 2019. If anyone's going to make a BCI headset that will sell a lot of units, it will be Valve. And if they do, the VR community, gaming community, will utilize the heck out of it if they can get the hardware. Because games like Valve's first main VR game, Half-Life Alyx, it was, I don't know how many units it sold, but it's absurd. And they are planning to use BCI in a couple upcoming games, a couple years down the road. Those would probably instantaneously become the most used brain-computer interface anythings in the world. Like, we're talking over 4 million units, over like probably 10, 20 million users over a couple years to have this hardware and be using it. And if when it should be used for video games, there are a lot of scientific research related games and experiences on Steam already. So people are taking big notice of it, and I think that's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's great.
It's worthwhile to watch that entire interview with Gabe Newell. That interview, one, he's barefoot. So once you're super successful, I guess you can give interviews in barefoot. But he's definitely a thought leader. It may be not particularly revolutionary for people on this call, but that interview is really good, and I highly recommend it. It's not on that video; it eludes that video. I could only find it on a site in a news site in New Zealand, but it's a fairly simple Google search.
Yeah,
or that's the one I sent.
Yeah,
that link is the New Zealand direct article. I also linked the US article, the Road to VR.
So I mean, but I think it's super important to add to this, right? That this is there's no research program associated with this, right? I mean that it is literally a headset, you know, and there are other companies that make a headset, that make an 8-channel headset that goes, you know, that's compatible with various devices. I mean, I'm, you know, I always love it when there are these kind of high profile articles. And yeah, I would love our videos to get even an order of magnitude more views than they get, let alone 4 or 5. But you know, it's I think the challenges are still there. That was, you know, my big concern from the Neurogaming conference, or, you know, the Neurogaming meeting that we did like
August, I think it was, of 2020.
You know, so you know, I like it, or, you know, I like the fact that, you know, groups that we've been working with for you know, quite closely for this year are part of this announcement. Like, I love that. I love that, you know, OpenBCI is getting that kind of you know, high profile kind of collaboration, and I love that you know, Andrei Parfenov is getting, you know, BrainFlow is getting mentioned in this. And, you know, and I love that yeah, that everything that we're doing with, say, like EEG notebooks is going to be automatically compatible with this.
Yeah, that's going to be so cool. Like, we can just be like, hey, do you, like, we could all of a sudden have like a couple million like people who like could send the data to that.
Sure. Well, so you know, we can also get several hundred to do that now if we just got everything working on Emotive, Muse, you know, and all the devices that that BrainFlow supports. And yeah, this is a really cool project that that John is leading for you know, the I think it's the Neurotech Data Challenge, and yeah, so we're pushing ahead with that, and we've got 5 minutes left. There's, you know, there's lots of great talks tomorrow. This weekend, you know, I know it says Society for Social Neuroscience meeting, which, I mean, it is super interesting, but what is particularly interesting is that they're running workshops this weekend. Sunday, most of those are filled up, but you can still do the Deep Lab Cuts tutorial this Sunday. Deep Lab Cuts is a learning framework for capturing animal pose. So if you have video stream of animals, you can get, you know, you can basically code behavior automatically, which is super useful if you've ever done animal behavior experiments. And then, of course, yeah, Highball is coming. So this is the winter school for Big Brain, which is a super high res brain atlas, or, you know, brain target. They've sliced at, you know, something like, I forget, it's, you know, 1 to 10 microns, and with multiple kinds of stains, you know, like old school stains, as well as like immunological stains, all sorts of molecular stains. And anyway, you know, the one thing that the pandemic's brought us is access to a lot of really high profile workshops that are now being made available online. So I do, you know, if for those who are interested, it's definitely going to be one of the cooler things to use and look at. And there is more I couldn't fit in because of the 4,000 character limit on Meetup. But check Slack for additional workshops and opportunities that are coming up. And yeah, any other last topics or things you want to point out for next week? are so Manuel, I saw what you posted in terms of getting a Spanish translation of learn.neurotechedu.com. I love that, and hopefully we'll get some answers back from NeurotechX Central in terms of getting.
I remember that was one of the topics we discussed a lot at the diversity meeting, was that right now, even though we're a worldwide group, we are somewhat inaccessible to certain languages, including, I'd say, like, ones that we really need are Spanish, French, Japanese, Chinese, Russian, probably Italian, and like all the German. Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's a lot of languages that would be very good, but I think that's also why we need people to try and join the diversity initiative, and like if they know anyone who's good at translations, that helps move this forward much quicker, because like I am terrible with language, including English.
Sure.
Yeah, getting translations would be incredibly helpful for education, research, just knowledge in general.
Well, yeah, we're getting there, but we also need to think about things like, how are we going to make that available? Like, what's the URL? So is this like learn.neurotechedu.com/es? How's that going to be linked to kind of like the main URL? We haven't. I still don't know anybody working on the web team. And like, we still don't have access to neurotechx.com, where I'd love to post all of our meetup agenda links. I'd love for us to have a good page that gives people a history of all the YouTube videos.
Yeah. Or have weekly email alerts or something, so people who don't have to constantly press attend meeting or save.
Right. I mean, so yeah. I mean, I've seen, so we're finishing up, and if anybody does have anything, please let me know. But I've seen meetup groups turn into Twitter only. Just because it's like, why do we have to press this thing? Like, we could get we could all follow, like we all follow stuff on Twitter. Just, post a link with, with a shared doc, or, a HackMD link, or, there's like a whole bunch of ways we could do it that don't rely on that kind of meetup infrastructure. And kind of like way of doing things. At the same time, how do we open things up? Like, in the sense that, like, how do we find those people who aren't, coming from academic labs and things like that, like, who are finding events because they're using Meetup, or Eventbrite, or, some of these other things. Like, how do we reach out to groups? I would love to talk to Sean more about, like, should we be running more Facebook ads?
I think the answer to that is always yes.
right. Yeah. We should all, plus Facebook needs our money, honestly. Anyway, things that we want to talk about. If you want to work on translations, get in touch with me. If you want to work on some of the, if you'd like to help with the San Francisco chapter, please get in touch too. I'd love help with social media and well, you know, anything you're interested in helping with. I'm looking for support, and please.
I think something that would be pretty easy to translate at some point and would be very useful on the Neurotech website would be a library, because like we constantly post all these papers. Yeah. And if we could have a library where all our members could read like every paper we post, and Google Translate's getting pretty decent. Like we could Google Translate a number of those decently and then just have someone review it.
Sure. Well, so I did want to mention, I wanted to mention one thing. I put this in the meetup agenda. So Active Inference Lab is a really interesting group that I'd seen that they were around for a while, but I hadn't actually jumped into one of their live streams. And so I know at least one of the people is a postdoc up at UC Davis. What they are trying to do is really great, though, in terms of like they're trying to do that well, in terms of sharing all the links that they're talking about, as well as Brain Inspired, which if you haven't caught that podcast, like when he, you know, he'll do 1.5-hour interviews, but he'll break down, you know, like you don't have to actually listen to the 1.5 hours. You can get a lot of the kind of bullet points and yeah. So very happy, Jenny, to talk about, you know, people who need access to papers and, you know, how to help people with things like Sci-Hub. That's you know, which even though it's not necessarily like NeurotechX's mission, I kind of like to think of it as being somewhat Noisebridge's mission. So we could put that as something that we could talk about more. I wanted to also just give a shout out to Jenny and Neosensory's. So they did a demo days for the contest that just finished. So I believe it was finished like at the middle of the month, and they are doing a developer meeting tomorrow mid-afternoon, like and so you can find that. I think it's on Eventbrite. Anyway, like super awesome demos. I mean, really impressive stuff. You know, I wish all our EEG projects looked as you know, polished and as well engineered. Some really cool stuff that's the bar I'd like to see our kind of like experimental control systems held to. Oh, great. So Jenny's posted a link in the chat, and you're right, like Ryan, like it's you know, even though we save all these chats, like we've got to get all these links out, because pretty much the only comments other than the kind of like rude spam ones that I see on YouTube, the main comments that I see from people are just like, I can't access the links. You know, if I